right, let's start. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, depending on which time zone you're joining us from. And a warm welcome to each one of you. Thank you so much for taking your time to join this session. It's great to see you all here. And we have a lot of people joining in yet. So give me a hi if you're excited to be here and ready for this session. All right. Hi, Shri Kumaran. Hello. Nice. Okay, let's start. No, thank you again for joining us today. My name is Soumya, and I have a pleasure of hosting this very special masterclass where our speaker, Mr. Matthew, will walk you through this session. He's a software engineer professional with over 28 years of experience in IT, retail, financial services, healthcare, airlines, and pharmaceutical industries. He's an experienced release train engineer and enterprise agile coach. Work with all levels of large enterprises to accelerate the flow of value, improve quality, engage customers, motivate employees, and modernize biz DevOps practices. Is an experienced with moving from project to product driven ways of working and leveraging successful patterns to customize lean agile practices in complex environments spanning business, development, and operational functions. And yes, we have planned this special session to be an engaging and fun. So keep sending in your comments and suggestions, and especially any questions that you have. We will answer them for sure at the end of the session. All right. So yes, before we dive deeper into our session, let's take a moment to gauge our participants' familiarity. So I'm launching a very quick poll here. So please take a moment to answer the following poll question. Give me a second. Yes. Here you go. Is your work experience in agile environment? And where are you from? And which of the following certifications have you achieved? So you will have multiple options to select here. And did you attend any SAFe Scrum Master certification training? All right.
Oh no, I see at least a couple of PMPs, and those guys are always troublemakers. So I'm a little bit worried. Have to keep them in line.
Right. Almost everyone completed the poll, so I'm ending the poll here and sharing the results for you, Matt. Yeah. Right. So most
Okay, yeah.
of them are from Europe and or Middle East, Africa, and okay. So many of them haven't undergone this training yet. So this session will be really helpful for you all. Right. Right. So without any further ado, I'm handing over the session to you, Matt.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm just looking at the breakdown on the poll. Glad that you guys are joining. I see that we've got quite a bit of experience in Agile, but maybe not so much in Scaled Agile. So I'm glad that hopefully we'll add a little bit to this. And so thanks for introducing me. I do teach SAFe classes. I consider myself, however, SAFe or framework agnostic, because the one thing I like to say is that I don't think frameworks like SAFe or any of them, for that matter, really exist in a pure form in nature. There's always good practices and patterns that you can learn, and I feel like I've sort of gone through the pain and the success and the ups and downs with a lot of companies, as many of you have. And that's really the value that I bring. But I am going to focus on SAFe. It's the largest scaled framework in use right now. And as you'll see when we talk through it, it's really um, a combination of many practices that have been around for a long time. SAFe adds some a layer to it, but the underlying concepts and principles are things that most people will recognize. So the way that I had outlined this, certainly ask questions, and I'll kind of keep an eye on the questions that is to focus on the Scrum Master position. I'm going to lay a little bit of groundwork, provide some definitions about what is Scrum. What does it even mean when we say Agile? There's mass confusion out there in my experience. Right now, as you saw on the other slide, I work as a consultant. But the first part of my career, I was in development. I come from a technical background. Uh, but it's been very enlightening these years as a consultant because I'm starting to see just how much variety is out there, and it's not all good. Um, Sort of a general lack of understanding, in my opinion, on some fundamental concepts. And it's one of the reasons why I say it's actually really hard to find good Scrum Masters. The Scrum Master position is so critical, and especially at certain stages, companies transition to Agile or a product driven way of working. But it's not fully understood. And like I said, it requires this unique mix of skills that's hard to find. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, just the foundations of uh, get a common language. Then I'm going to talk about what specifically it takes to be a Scrum Master in a scaled organization versus what you may have learned, those of you who took the CSM or any of the classes with Scrum Alliance. I'm also going to weigh in a little bit my opinions on the trends and realities on the job market. I think that it's getting tough out there, and I'll give you my 2 cents about how to stand out in the job market as well. Then lastly, I have a few recommendations about SAFe certifications. So that's what we'll do. So we'll start with the foundations. I couldn't resist. I had to put a cartoon out there about Scrum Masters. Definitely this agile process stress disorder is something that I encounter a lot. Lots of companies I go into as a consultant, and those of you who are consultants probably have seen this. I'm usually coming in and cleaning up after maybe some big company has been there and tried to do an agile transformation, and it was messy. Uh, and and so this agile process stress disorder is something that resonates with me when I see that. So I want to start with just what is business agility? Uh, and I'm already kind of just basic definition. I had a general manager once come to me and ask, this is when I was a face of engineering for an organization. And the general manager said, I understand that we're trying to be agile and all. Use the word agile, but our priorities may need to shift every week by week. And granted, let me set the stage for this. This was a SAFe implementation, which means there were lots of teams with a lot of dependencies on one another to deliver the solution. Probably approaching 1,000 people. And it hit me just how big of a disconnect there could be when I heard that. So his definition of agility was that we'd be able to take this organization with many, many teams and almost 1,000 people and essentially turn on a dime. Now I don't know if that's practical, right? And it just illustrates one example of just the many, right, kind of misunderstandings about applying or becoming agile, especially in the largest organizations. because this is tough. This is tough business. So this is the way that SAFe defines it. This is the way that I define it. Is this how quickly can we respond to a business opportunity? So you notice that already I'm speaking a language that's higher than just a team, because being agile is so much more than just doing Scrum on an individual team level. And this does matter for the Scrum Master role, which I'll get to. Because if we have the team levels working great as Scrum teams, but it still takes us 4 months to get something out into the hands of customers, have we actually increased our agility as a business to respond to market opportunities? Right? I would argue that we haven't. And the same on the other end. If we recognize an opportunity and someone creates an epic or whatever initiative, whatever your language is, and it takes months before it works its way through funding and gets built, that's all increasing what lean people would call a total lead time, right? And that's the opposite of agility. So we want to be quick, and this is tough at scale to do. And so sometimes you'll see SAFe define this as delivering the highest sustainable speed with the maximum amount of quality. So just level setting that's what we're talking about for the most part, right? When you look at, there are lots of objectives that businesses have, and they should be articulated, right, as OKRs or business objectives. SAFe calls them strategic themes. And everything that we're doing in all of the teams and the structure below the objectives being set should clearly trace up to that, right? Ideally. Easy to say those things, not hard to do. And I'm sorry, easy to say those things, very hard to do. I don't know why I said not hard. So let's just start with some other definitions. So we got the definition of business agility. Some of you may know about Scrum, and this is just one of the Scrum diagrams. It's not the prettiest one, but you may be familiar with Scrum. We're talking about, let's simplify this and let's just talk about software development teams, although all of these concepts are being applied in many domains now. Scrum is a iterative approach to developing software. It's got the Scrum Master, the product owner roles, and then the Scrum team, and they follow a process of something like this, where they're planning. They have a backlog that they're keeping their requirements in. Backlog has what we call stories in it. So it's just the way we write the requirements. And they work on a cadence called a sprint. So typically it's every 2 weeks, and the team works together. They've got cross-functional capability as much as possible so that they can own what they're delivering as much as possible and deliver value incrementally. So this was wonderful. I remember when this came out, I was very skeptical of it because I had been working in a waterfall world for a long time. But it actually works really well for individual teams. Okay, so we're going to go now, and let's just compare the team in SAFe. SAFe actually adopts pretty much the same thing. It adopts Scrum from the Scrum guide, right? And what we just talked about, but with a little bit more. You can see there's a little more context, but the basics are the same. We still have a product owner. We still have a Scrum Master. Lately, they'll say Scrum Master / team coach. And at the team level, they're the same, but you would never want to implement SAFe if all you had were a few teams. Because the power of SAFe, and the reason why you need something like SAFe or Scrum at Scale or Disciplined Agile or less or whatever your framework is because your solutions are more complex than can be completed with a single team. And so that takes us up. Well, so now we have multiple teams. So I sort of shortened this, and I'm saying that there's team backlogs, not just one backlog. We have multiple teams. And then I'm going to talk about the team of teams. So most of you are probably aware or have heard that term. This is why we have things like SAFe. It's because we have a lot of teams that have to coordinate together. They have dependencies that have to be managed to deliver the solution. So the focus of this is now how can we get people not only to not think of themselves and to operate as highly effective, high performing teams, but something much harder. We want teams to think of themselves as this team of teams. SAFe calls them an agile release train. The metaphor being that, all the teams are a car on the train. We're trying to get to the destination together. And this goes a little bit against human nature, truthfully, because when you have the teams formed, people they like to tribalize. I don't know the right word, but they go into silos and they don't communicate. So we're going a lot of what it means to operate at scale that adds to the challenge, the tremendous number of challenges that I'm going to go over, is constantly getting different teams on different technology stacks to think of themselves and put the team of teams first, and to operate that way. And that's difficult, to say the least. And that's the structure that SAFe is offering. So people have been doing this for years and years, and they've developed what people call patterns, right? So best practices or patterns that generally work historically for most companies that are trying to do this. So it'd be, a tough sell, in my opinion, to reinvent the wheel, rather than to study the patterns, understand why the patterns work and have worked, and then the really hard job, right? But you can't get to the really hard job of applying it to the really complex real world of your companies unless you understand the theory and the patterns, inside and out. So you're starting to see the reason I'm going over some of these foundations for the Scrum Master role is the Scrum Master is only one of a couple of roles that are defined in the Scaled Agile Framework that have a coaching responsibility. It's their responsibility to know the why of all of this, to fully understand the patterns, and to nudge the organization or their teams and do their part at the team of teams level, agile release train or ART, again, to get them to work efficiently, because we can't deliver value by definition without figuring out how to work well as a team of teams. So what we've got these two, you could think of them as two levels of SAFe. There's the team level, which is Scrum, and the Scrum Master role. But then we have this metaphor for operating together as a team of teams that we call an agile release train. And it's really that simple, but then you could start to see that it gets complicated because, well, how do we, and I stuck another thing on here, how do we start to develop what we call a continuous delivery pipeline? Our definition of business agility is to get a new feature that someone wants from concept to cache, all the way to the end in the shortest amount of time while maintaining very high quality. And that's where things get really tricky and why it's hard to find good Scrum Masters or really any of the roles that know how to operate in this environment. You can find good core skills of a Scrum Master. As a matter of fact, the CSM, I think I saw one of the latest State of Agile reports that came out. It's still by far the most widely held certification. But there's arguably too many out there. I hope I don't make anybody upset with that, right? There's the market's kind of flooded with it. It's still valuable. All of the skills in that are valuable at the team level, but what's lacking is this connection and ability to translate things at a very, very, much more complicated team of teams level. And because, what happens, we to do this requires the introduction of a whole bunch of other concepts. And I don't want to overwhelm people in this, but I hope it excites you, right? Because the CSM, and I don't know what it is these days. And in my day, it was a few days of training. In the future, or now maybe, I don't know, is it a week, a couple of days? That's not enough, right? It's enough to open the door and to understand the basics at a team level. But the real value out there and the struggle that companies are having, and there's a lot of stats about this, it's not that high of a percentage of companies that fully succeed at large scale transformation. There's a lot of unhappiness out there, yet they still try because the benefits are so great. And they're documented, the companies that are able to do it. I saw a great McKinsey study the other day that talked about, it actually analyzed that. Why are some companies very successful at transforming while others are not? And it's very interesting. I just, I don't want to go off too much of a tangent, but lots of it had to do with the common culprits that you hear. You have to have very strong management support. There has to be a lot of focus on change management. Sometimes that's underestimated. And then knowing what you need to do, not just that you need to do it, is in there. And so much of this comes to the change agents that you have around your organization. The key change agent, in my opinion, is the Scrum Master. Or related roles like an RTE. I'll sort of put that in the same bucket. So lots of other concepts. As a matter of fact, everything above the team level is not Scrum. It's a whole bunch of other business concepts, mostly Kanban driven, and mostly coming from lean startup, and then even extreme programming, but a lot of that does happen at the team level. So maybe some of this looks familiar to you. Maybe some of this seems really technical. But I do think it's a good idea, and we'll talk a little bit more about it later in the presentation, that Scrum Masters understand these pictures if you really want to stand out. That you understand the big picture and how these things connect. So SAFe, just to kind of tie this section up, is what does it take to develop in large organizations? It takes a lot of coordination. So really one of the formulas that SAFe provides on the practice side, again, all of this has to be customized. Again, one misunderstanding about frameworks like SAFe is that they're black and white checkbox solutions. No, they're absolutely not. But they're best practices, and they have these well-defined events that drive everything. So you have all the elements, you know how to write requirements, you know how to operate as Scrum teams, and but how do you know who to involve and at what point in the process? When do I write a business case for something? When do I bring in architects? When do I bring in the development teams? How much requirement should I write when it's still very speculative versus how much requirements, right? And how much of the design do we have to do at what stage? All of that is governed by a set of Kanban practices and events. So you probably noticed a couple of terminology things here. SAFe doesn't call sprints sprints; they call them iterations. Just a language thing. They also you'll see other little changes throughout. They have a team sync, not a daily stand up or a scrum of scrums or a scrum or a daily scrum, things like that. And that leads to this bigger picture of SAFe, which looks really complicated. Um, but if you've taken a SAFe class, you realize that it is complicated, but it's also the approach is to do the minimum amount of framework necessary. The problem is that it may be necessarily complex, right? If it were easy, every organization would be doing this. But that's also an opportunity. There aren't that many people that know how all of this fits together. I'm just telling you, right off the bat, because I work with lots of companies, and it makes that skill set valuable. Okay, so that brings us to the Scrum Master role and at scale. So there's the traditional Scrum Master skills that everybody should is a great place to start. So I see a lot of you have taken the CSM. You've probably talked about a lot of these. You probably talked about something called servant leadership and how that's important. It absolutely is. It's very important that you get some hands-on experience with this if you haven't. If you don't have experience working in the team, but you took the CSM class, you may feel that you kind of understand it. But like everything else, you have to get in there and experience it to fully understand its power. So these are the traditional things. There's and they still apply in a SAFe environment. SAFe extends that a little bit, and this is their responsibility wheel. And you can see this supporting iteration execution. Iteration means sprint. Right out from Scrum for the most part. Improving flow right from Scrum, and then building high performing teams. The only thing is everything's a little trickier because you're dealing with a team of teams and possibly all the other complications that happen in large organizations. Business as usual work, support and maintenance responsibilities, competing priorities coming from all over the place. I'm sure none of this sounds familiar to you guys, right? That was my sarcasm voice because I know it happens everywhere. In SAFe, we take it a step further, though. The Scrum Master needs to also understand their role in the team of teams performance and in facilitating the planning and coordination between all of the teams. They have this thing called PI planning, just a planning interval that happens every 8 to 12 weeks, where we resynchronize as a team of teams. Again, because our solution, the features that we're building, require you don't have to, but most of them, or wouldn't have SAFe, require more than one team to deliver. So the Scrum Master is right in the middle of this. coordinating those things. They are especially critical for in companies that are going through transformations. If you're right in the middle of a transformation, is when the Scrum Master role is most tangibly bringing value. Where things start to get a little bit muddy is what about the organizations that have already transferred or transitioned, and the teams are fairly high performing already. Do we still need the Scrum Master role? This is the struggle that people are thinking about, and I've seen it come full circle, right? The arguments on both sides for this. Right now, the official word by SAFe is that, well, what happens is the Scrum Master could handle more than one team, but you need to always constantly be improving. But there are a lot of opinions. So the core values of SAFe, I'm just sort of picking a couple of things. SAFe has a lot to it, but this says a lot about the challenge of operating at scale, but the opportunity, right? The excitement to this is what we're talking about is in the largest organizations in the world. I just finished working with CVS Healthcare, which is a Fortune 4 company. How do we communicate and align in an organization that big? Very difficult. Lots of opportunity there for agilists, right? And for roles that know how to do that. Connecting strategy and execution. How do we know we're building the right thing? How do we know that what we're building actually solves a customer problem? Things like design thinking come into play. The transparency is huge, very common mistake in organizations that really falls on the shoulders of Scrum Masters and RTEs, uh, the, which those of you that are new to that, the RTE is called a release train engineer. It's roughly analogous to a Scrum Master, but at the team of teams level, senior Scrum Master, just to oversimplify it a little. Does the organization really, like everybody likes to say, we've got a transparent and a trusting organization. But how many, of you have worked in an organization where senior management is over scrutinizing each team's performance and whether or not they're meeting and hitting all the point projection that they gave in every single sprint? If you don't recognize that as a huge anti-pattern, then you have lots of opportunities for growth there, right? That's a huge anti-pattern, but it's not obvious to a lot of people. But when you start looking at things from the business agility standpoint, a little bit wider view, and you do something that SAFe calls value stream mapping, where we look at how long each step of the process takes that we take. All right, we got to get something approved. We have to define it. There's some design done. It goes to an architecture review, let's say, et cetera, et cetera. You find that there's a lot of waste in the middle of the steps. That actually the vast majority of the time to market is spent sitting around waiting. And that, what that says is that the solution to faster time to market, the definition of business agility, is not to crack the whip more and to micromanage the teams, but to take a little bigger look at the delays, right? Which is why we rely so much on lean concepts to solve those. Lean is about eliminating waste, right, in a system. And so um, the Scrum Masters that understand that in their team or the teams they work with provide so much more value and perspective and coaching to keep everybody, understanding what's really important, be visualizing the work, and especially that the work shifts up from the team when you're in scale. What we deliver are called features, not the stories. And it may sound weird, right? But the stories, and maybe it's just semantics. The stories is kind of how we separate out the work and keep track of which team does what. But ultimately, it's those features that the team of teams, that the art is delivering that matter. And you can't do any of this without the bottom two core values. People have to be motivated. People don't want to be micromanaged. You have to have innovation. And this comes to the human side, right? Which is why you have to be a little bit of a psychologist. We talk a lot about conflict management, and it takes a while to develop high performing teams. All right. Now, I see that a hand is raised. We could take one question if somebody does have a question. Did you type your question anywhere? However you guys want to do that. Did you, here, I'll just, I'm going to turn your mic on if you just want to ask the question. It'll just break it up for me. Go right ahead. Okay. All right, if you're talking, we can't hear you, so you might want to look at your mic. All right, I'll keep going to you. And you can type that out if you do have a question. Okay.
All right. Afternoon. How are you? Thanks for the
Oh,
instruction. I'm a little bit confused somewhere. I feel I had an ICP ACC class some few days ago. Then I was
great.
trying to find out what is the next stage because I don't have SAFe. So I have PSM, PMP before I did the ICP. So I'm a little bit confused on a stage to go to because the ones I have, most times when I apply for some jobs, I don't really get them, but I have this certification. So I need something I can do that is going to be like a breakthrough for a bigger company, like the small company I work with.
Yeah, no, and that's a great question. I'm sure that's on the minds of a lot of people here. Thanks for asking that. And that kind of leads, it's sort of like you set me up for the next slides. I appreciate it. Let me know if I answer this. So how do you separate yourself from the market? So I wanted to give that little introduction about SAFe and what it is, and hopefully, a little appreciation for it. My take, now we're going into Matt Wyman's opinion area, is I like this idea of what I'm starting to see, this term full stack Scrum Master that's being put out there. The market, in my opinion, is flooded with Scrum Masters. I talked to a recruiter the other day who said they get something like 1,000, applications for sometimes when they post a Scrum Master role. So it's flooded with Scrum Masters. The good news is it's flooded with traditional Scrum Masters, right? And the CSM. You definitely have to get the CSM still because people expect it. But a big differentiator is SAFe. And I don't get paid by SAFe. I consider myself agnostic, but it is a big differentiator. You may even need to go further than that, right, to get some of the top positions. But you stand out tremendously if you understand how things fit together. So there's this full stack Scrum Master idea, and understanding how this. I think there's, in my opinion, there's a convergence of all of these roles that's occurring. The people call things differently. And by the way, when you see on the Scaled Agile website, it will say, it'll have all these list of roles. Remember that those aren't titles. They're roles, meaning they're a set of responsibilities that somebody has to do. But the titles vary. There's still very much a need for business analysts, project managers, development managers, and so on. The thing is mapping those to the needed responsibilities. And even having, if you're at the team level, certainly the servant leadership style is very important. Maybe this will be controversial for me to say, but this isn't the first time I've said it, is I think that there's a need as you start going up and understanding how everything fits together, there's an expectation that people also have skills that require other types of leadership. Again, I think this is a great opportunity to distinguish yourself. There's the notion of a coach as sort of the back of the room, sitting back, guiding, and there still is that need in certain scenarios. But I think that it's dangerous if that's all you do. I don't know for sure, but look what just happened with Capital One at the beginning of this year, and they laid off a huge number of their delivery leads, the job description of which was basically it looked like a Scrum Master to me. And but you see, there's still a high demand for agility, and you're seeing a high demand in a lot of other roles. So a lot of it, I think, is the expectations that people are having. I think that it's not enough to know just the CSM version of what a Scrum Master does, but to also understand the dynamics about how things fit together. And again, you don't have to be super experienced. Even just having knowledge or the certification shows that you have a little bit wider understanding and growth in that area. What really matters is not the practices. Some people get really hung up on, well, the daily Scrum, right, or the daily stand-up needs to be 15 minutes, and we're going to ask these questions, and we're going to do a retrospective, and those are the practices. But those are what's going to change out in the real world. In the real world, Scrum doesn't fit everywhere. It's really messy, right? You've got teams that shouldn't even be doing Scrum that are sort of blindly thrown into Scrum because, they're the nature of their work. They should be Kanban teams or maybe, one of the hybrids. There are patterns for all of these things. So going in with just the knowledge of the ideal software development team and how to do the routines as a Scrum Master on those, without a little bit of the context that large organizations are facing, is not as valuable as it was. Again, there's still a valuable set of skills, but there are a lot of people that can do that. The opportunity is knowing the underlying principles, because the underlying principles is where you'll be able to step back, look at the scenarios and the real complexity, and know how to adjust the practices to fit. Because the answer is never because SAFe says so, right? The answer is the answer, right, about why SAFe says that, right? And it's going to be different depending on the domain that you're in. If you're dealing mostly with, service management systems or operation teams, that's completely different than R&D and the development teams, right? Which which is what we're all used to talking about. So the struggle companies have, in my opinion, every single one in the last 8 years that I've been working with, without a single exception, is struggling with this difficulty of thinking that SAFe and agility means this one formula of Scrum, and they run into these walls. And no wonder people say, oh, that doesn't apply to us. But if you can overcome that, you're bringing tremendous value. There, I sort of just give the general thing is learn the practices that are appropriate. In the real world, we've got lots of different types of teams. Streamline teams is what we learned about in CSM and in Scrum Master class. But do you know how you would work with an enabling team? For example, all of this comes from that book, Team Topologies, uh, which is a great book, by the way. But and there are tons of patterns, right? And you don't have to be an expert in all these, and very few people are. But just knowing that there's not this one formula that we learned, but that there are tons of patterns already distinguishes you from the competition. And it sort of brings me to my last bit, is this tips on standing out. There is such a need for good Scrum Masters in the real world at scale. It's the most frequent, persistent problem that I see are people trying to just sort of apply rote memorization process on teams without fully understanding the bigger picture of what they're dealing with. And it's not rocket science. This stuff is readily available out there and documented and fairly well defined. It's just here are a few tips. These are just from me. Any knowledge that you have on a bigger business agility picture. As a coach and consultant, I stand out from other consultants just talking a tiny bit and showing a little bit that I understand what really matters is from the executive point of view, right? And this, no executive is ever going to say, oh, we should be agile for agile's sake, because it makes people happy and stuff. They want people to be happy, but there has to be a tangible reason behind it. We have to understand that we're trying to achieve certain goals of the company, and we have to show how those are going to happen, or at least make the connection. And not everybody will be working with executives, but it applies all the way wherever your specialty is. Having an appreciation for change management. I think that Scrum Masters are normally pretty good at this, already, but there's a lot that's a big field, right? Understanding the basics of DevOps and why that's so important. And that does not have to be complicated. For example, one of the certifications I would recommend, if you get your SAFe SSM, which I think is a great one. Because it's gonna give you the introduction to all of this at scale, is the DevOps class. And nobody takes that. Hardly anybody takes that. I mean, we do it a good amount, but hardly anybody takes that because they're scared of it. They think it's technical. It's SAFe. It's not that technical. It actually introduces you to just enough of the technical language. So it's going to make you extremely valuable, especially if you're not coming from a technical background. And every company has to worry about that now. And then a focus on measurement and results, right? What would those measurements be? And probably, I would guess most of you are probably very familiar, and some of you are probably very experienced at the team level measurements. So then it's just one more step. How are we going to measure results acting as a team of teams, right? So there's another set of practices and measures that we use at that level. All right. That sort of ends my presentation. I don't know if we have any questions. Any additional questions? I see, I do see some hands raised. So let me, sorry, I'm slow. Okay. Ayurindi, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right. I unmuted you if you want to ask your question.
I do appreciate you, sir. Thanks for the overview. I am currently an APM and an Agile coach.
Awesome.
I do appreciate every single information you just shared, but I wanted to see if you can, shine a little more light on the organizational change management. The best, you do make a great point of helping us understand that a lot of times Scrum is not, exactly textbook or shouldn't be the right answer for organizations. But I wanted to know, your approach as to the change management part. I think that is
Yeah,
something I do my best to master.
yeah, no, and I really just mentioned it as a whole field that's out there that I think that's one area that I think SAFe doesn't go deep enough on. SAFe does, essentially the change management in SAFe is go read some of Cotter's books, right? Like Leading Change, and which I definitely great books. But I think I got an appreciation for that as a field on its own when I was working at CVS recently, because it was kind of a unique scenario. It was the Scaled Agile coaches, but we were working really closely with Six Sigma Master Black Belts and OCM people, like professional OCM people. And then it like opened my eyes to how much I don't know about that. I've always tried to be aware of the balance between pushing too fast and appreciating that there are sort of cultural things that have to be addressed, and planning and communication and how important it is. But I think I mentioned it, and maybe it's just self-reflective. It's something that I continue to need to work on. So I'm just mentioning it as something that's just often misunderstood, or people underestimate how resistant to change companies and people can be. Sorry,
Appreciate you.
yeah, we don't have enough time to go into the details. I hope that gives you a little
Absolutely.
answer.
Absolutely.
Great. Good question. Anybody else? We have a lot of shy people today.
Yes, so anybody else have any questions? So you can text them in the chat or Q&A window, or else you can raise your hand as well.
Oh, by the way, I took my SAFe course through KnowledgeHut.
Okay, good. Did you have me or did you have somebody else?
It was someone else. It was somebody else. I mean, it's been
Oh,
a
okay,
while
good.
ago. It's a long time ago.
All right. I just wanted to make sure, because I was going to have to mute you if you're going to say bad stuff about me or something. No, I'm just kidding. I think most people, when they get into SAFe, it is rigorous. If you take any of the SAFe classes, that could be what was on your mind, that, wow, there was a lot covered in a short amount of time. At least I know with me and with KnowledgeHut, we try to give lots of exposure to what the test is going to be like. In my opinion, though, it's worth the effort. And the rigor, even if you don't do a formal class, it's worth the effort just to study on your own, as well. There's a huge need for this, for people that know how to apply this at scale or in really complex, more complex situations. And it's fun. It's my niche anyway. It's what I like to do now with my career. So, all right. I don't know if we have any other questions. If not, we can wrap it up.
Yes, Matt. So, yeah, if the questions are not coming in, then we are good to wrap the session. Yes, so your feedback is very valuable for us. So after the session ends, you will be directed to a survey form. Please give us your valuable feedback. And thank you everyone for joining the session. And thank you, Matt. It was very insightful session.
Sure. No, you guys are welcome. Appreciate everybody coming out. Thank you.
Salman, yes, we have the recording. It will be published on YouTube, KnowledgeHut YouTube channel in a few days. We will share. So keep looking into it. And yeah, we will share you the recording also once it is live on YouTube, right?
Sounds good.
Yes.
It's only going to cost $1,000. Made out to Matt Wyman. That's it. I'm sorry. I have a stupid sense of humor.
That's okay, no problem. Yes, we raised the hand. Yeah. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I just want to ask. I checked KnowledgeHut. I tried to check the prices for the SAFe thing. I saw it was about 1,500. So I wanted to find out, is the test included in it? The test, the certification, is included with the price?
It is. You get access or membership to the SAFe community site for a year, and you get your first attempt is free as long as you do it within 30 days of the class.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Other than that, otherwise they'll charge you $50. That's what I understand.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, Salman, you have anything to ask? You have raised your hand. Yeah.
Do we need to? Oh, they're unmuted. Salman? Okay, maybe having microphone difficulties.
Yeah, if you're unable to talk, you can text in the Q&A tab or chat window. I'll read it out for you.
Yep,
All
sounds
right.
good.
Yes. Thank you again for everyone joining this session. Okay, he's asking, I am a PM and want to move towards Agile. Okay.
Okay. Just put in chat when you say PM, different companies use different things. Do you mean product manager or project manager?
Yeah.
I'm assuming product. I'm assuming product manager based off what you put there. Oh, project manager. Okay. Yeah. A lot of it depends on what you're interested in. Project management skill set is so valuable. Some people say that it's most analogous to the Scrum Master path. But I would say that depends on how they're defining the Scrum Master, right? There are Scrum Master roles out there that are more defined, more, I don't know, broader scope that would really utilize the skill of a professional project manager more than others. I would look at the description. And again, in my opinion, we'll see if it turns out, I think Agile project management, delivery lead, a lot of those roles in general are starting to converge or muddy a little bit. But I think that's good news for a project manager because you're used to owning things. And I think that's what some people are having trouble with. The Agile role has this unfortunate perception sometimes, Scrum Master, of just sitting back, not really owning anything, giving advice. It's ignorance of the role. Not saying it's fair, but it means that the ability to show that you can drive things and execute not only on the servant leadership side, but in a driving capacity, I think would be valuable. Product management just would depend on your interest. For most project managers, that would be perhaps a bigger leap, but maybe yours is defined differently, right? So product management, they understand the ins and outs of the market and the product that they're doing, the customers. They own the vision and the roadmap for the product owners. In SAFe or at Scale are more about execution, right? So they're taking what they know, they're kind of subject matter experts, taking what the product management vision is and bridging the gap of execution into the team. So product owners and product managers are dealing more with what needs to be done. And Scrum Masters and the development teams are dealing with more about how, right? How we're going to execute on that. I don't know if that helps a little bit. So whether you take those classes would depend on what interests you, interest you the most. If you're a senior project manager, and you get some Scrum experience, you might be interested in the RTE role, which is probably the most like a program manager or something like that, where you're, very, very complex job requiring a lot of coordination. Anyway, hope that helps.
Yes, so I think it answered your question, Salman. Okay. So yes, we can wrap the session now. So thank you everyone again, and see you all in the next sessions, right?
Okay.
Thank you,
Thanks.
ma'am.
Bye-bye.
Yeah,
You're
bye.
welcome. Bye.